Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Eve Galanter, and I would like to introduce Alex Joers, running for State Assembly in District 81. Welcome, Alex. As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, civic experiences that you have that prepare you for this office and why you are running for the State Assembly.
Well, thank you for inviting me here, Eve. I really appreciate it. As you mentioned, I'm Representative Alex Joers. This is my second term, and I'm running for a third term in the State Assembly representing District 81, which is Middleton, Waunakee, and Northwest Dane County. I have been a resident of the district nearly in my entire life, except for when I was attending UW-La Crosse to get my public administration degree, and I've really just invested in this community. I've worked in this community and I've raised my family here. So very excited to be able to continue my work in the state legislature, making sure that families can afford to live in the state of Wisconsin and really deliver results for people and use my experience to make sure that things are getting done for Wisconsinites.
Well, how would you like to see the state utilize the current budget surplus?
That's a great question. I think that has been a topic of discussion recently. I believe it's possible to be progressive and also fiscally responsible. We know that the projected surplus is one-time money, so just like any family budget or small business, I want to make sure we're taking care of bills that are due already. And something that first comes to mind is the special education reimbursement. We need to make sure that we're fulfilling the promise that this past legislature made on making sure that we're providing some sufficient funding for the special education reimbursement. So that's kind of the first area I would go to. And then making sure we're using it for things that require one-time funds to make sure that we're seeding new policy proposals or making sure that we're filling holes potentially in Medicaid or natural resources or transportation, so that we're taking care of our bills just like any other household would do and making sure that we're doing it responsibly.
Well, what guardrails, if any, would you support to protect our environment, our health, property values, household budgets from the large projects such as hyperscale data centers and CAFOs, concentrated agricultural feeding operations?
This is an important topic for sure. I think you're right. We do need to set clear and strict guardrails around these hyperscale data centers and CAFOs to make sure that our ratepayers are protected, our environment is protected, and local control is preserved. So last session we saw some movement from the legislature, but unfortunately the majority party took a bill that essentially was written by big tech for data center regulation. What I would like to see, since that failed from becoming law, is something to make sure that we're making ratepayers are protected and making sure that utility increases are covered by data centers, and that renewable energy is being built up to support that. With regard to CAFOs, I think we need to make sure that, again, environmental standards are strict and that landowners are protected from any pollution that is happening. So that's something that I want to continue to prioritize in the next legislature.
Well, what, if anything, should the state legislature do to improve election processes and safeguard election integrity?
Absolutely. Well, I think first we need to stop with any conspiracy theories and making sure that what we're talking about is based in fact and talking about the transparency we want to continue to see in our elections. Wisconsin has a robust system to make sure folks' ballots are counted and that they're able to make sure that their right to vote is protected. So that's something that I want to see in the future legislature, is a focus on expanding the access to the ballot and making sure everybody has easy access to that. But also I think Monday ballot processing can be passed. We were so close this past legislative session to ensure that clerks had the ability to at least make sure that mail ballots were able to be processed on election day with speed and accuracy. So that's something that I think we can do, but also supporting our local clerks and election workers so that they have the resources to make sure that they can count every ballot in a transparent and efficient way.
Well, share with our audience an example of an effort with which you have been involved that demonstrates how you can be effective in creating policy change.
Well, I have a few examples of my past couple terms. I've worked across the aisle even when it was tough to deliver results for the people of my district, and I've also stood firm when our values were on the line. And so some examples of that are, in my first term, I overcame a deeply gerrymandered legislature to pass some cost-saving measures for higher education by modernizing our EdVest system and also making sure we reviewed our National Guard tuition program so that I was able to help students save money in that way. We passed bills to do that. And then I also, in my first term, was able to reach across the aisle and pass the first nutrition incentive program in Wisconsin. So that's making sure families are able to stretch their grocery budget to buy locally produced fruits and vegetables. And that money is actually being distributed right now as we speak. So I'm excited to see that used in farmers markets and local retailers across the state. In my second term, I had some more results, delivering on a task force to protect kids and providing our Internet Crimes Against Children division under DOJ some more resources and staffing to ensure that we're holding cyber criminals accountable. That was a great win for the people of Wisconsin, as we know the influence that big tech has in our daily lives. So those were a few examples of things I was able to get done by reaching across the aisle. And then, of course, I stood firm on our values when the current majority party wouldn't bring a final vote for the Postpartum Medicaid Extension Act and Gale's Law. We delivered enough pressure, along with the people of the state, to get those bills across the finish line. So those were some great things that we were able to do.
What other priorities do you have that we may have not already addressed?
Well, I think there are a few that I like to focus on. I want to make sure that education is invested in Wisconsin and that our kids' future is ensured to have a brighter future, specifically starting with early education. I want to make sure that childcare is affordable for families and that also parents can rely on a quality early education for their kids preschool. And then, of course, we want to make sure that our K-12 system and the financing around it is fixed in this next legislature so that we're reducing some of the burden from property tax payers, and then making sure that every kid has a quality education. And then finally, of course, higher education, making sure we're supporting our colleges and universities so that students can afford to further their education and technical training, and bring more people to Wisconsin and make sure folks stay here and build a family here.
Well, what would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
I would just make sure that people know that there is an election on August 11th and November 3rd. Their voice matters, their vote matters, and we want to make sure that everybody is able to exercise that right. So make sure to get out to the polls, and I look forward to serving my constituents for another term in the State Assembly.
Well, I want to thank Alex Joers for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.